So up next, we're going to talk about another way of representing colors, which is using hexadecimal. Most people just say hex, colors for short, hexadecimal. So it's based off of the exact same color model, the same system of having a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel, and each one ranges from 0 to 255. But the big difference is that hex colors are actually different using hexadecimal notation. So if you are not familiar with that term hexadecimal, no worries at all. Let's start with the idea of decimal. Most of the Western world accounts using the decimal system where every digit in a number ranges from 0 to 9, right? So the largest single digit number we have is 9. Then we move on to 10, which is a two-digit number. The largest two-digit number we have is 99. So with a single spot, a single little place in a number, right? So if we have a couple of slots like this, the single largest number that can go in each one is 9 in a decimal system. But we have other number systems, for example, binary. In binary, we have exactly two choices for each spot in a number. So the largest three-digit number in binary is 111. Now, what we are talking about here is hexadecimal, which is different. It is base 16 instead of base 10 or base 2 like binary. In hexadecimal, every spot or every slot in a number has 16 choices. And because we run out of numerals, what are the Arabic numerals? I think is the right term, 0 through 9. We then use letters A, B, C, D, E, and F. So F here is 15. It represents 15 if it were in decimal. But we are storing it in a single spot using a letter. So the largest single digit number that we can represent with hexadecimal is just F. F is the same as writing 15 in decimal. So the reason that we would use something like hexadecimal is that it can lead to more compact color names or color references. We are basically giving a number to every color that, not every possible color on earth, but we are giving a number to a bunch of colors, and we are using letters to help make those numbers shorter. We are using hexadecimal so that we can store more information in a single digit. Even if that digit happens to be a letter, it's still considered a number in hexadecimal. Anyway, here's what it looks like. So we have 6 numbers and they consist of 3 pairs. So the first 2 are the red channel, the second 2 are the green channel, and the third 2 are the blue channels. So just like RGB, as we saw previously, we have a red, a green, and a blue channel, and they range from 0 to FF. But FF in hexadecimal is 255. So don't get too hung up on the math. But this is another way of saying 0 to 255. It's just a little bit more compact. And we do have this hash symbol, or I think it's technically octotop, pound sign, whatever you want to call it. We have to have that there to indicate that we are writing a hexadecimal color. So this example here is full blast red, full green, and no blue. And in the RGB color model, red plus green gives us yellow. So that's what we see there. Here's another example. Here we have something a little bit different. We've got some red, some green, and some blue. And I do not expect anyone to be able to just look at this and know exactly what shade or what color it's going to be. But you can see that we've got a decent amount of blue, we've got a decent amount of green, and we've got some red. And we end up with this sort of, I don't know, like a darkish blue-green color. But just remember the order RGB and 0 to 255, except it's really 0 to FF, which is the same thing. So if you look at any color picker out there, it's going to give you hex codes, and they are very commonly used, more so in my experience, than RGB colors. Even though it's still an RGB system, it's just a little bit shorter. So if I want to use one of these colors, how about like a blue like that? I'm getting the hex code right here. I'm also getting it here. I can just copy that and paste it over wherever I want to use it. Let's use it for the color of my text. There we go. Let's refresh. And you can see I'm getting that color here. So very easy to use. You do not need to really be able to look at this and understand what it is. But VS Code, one of the nicer features for CSS is this little color preview. It tells you what you're looking for. I really appreciate that, because otherwise, if you just saw this and you didn't have the little light blue square, it's a little hard to know what you're dealing with. So two different ways of referencing colors: RGB, where we write RGB parentheses and then using decimal numbers from 0 to 255 separated by commas, and then also hexadecimal, where it's the same principle, and an RG and a B channel, but each channel is stored with 2 hexadecimal digits. So use whichever you prefer. I generally use hex codes. So if I'm going to a color picker, this is an app that builds a palette for you. You can find different color palettes and upvote them and downvote them and all of that. But if I like one of these colors, I just copy the hex and I use that. If I like this one, copy that or play around with this and find a color I want and use that inside of my code. But you can also use RGB. They both are equally good and they both are much better than using the name colors built into your browser. Oh, and before I forget, there's also a shorthand that you may run into. You can have a 3-digit hexadecimal number if each triplet is the exact same digit. So that doesn't really explain it very well. But imagine we had 000000. What color is that, by the way? No color at all. No red, no green, no blue. That's going to be black. So if I don't know, how about I give my body a background color of black? So background color, just like that. Put my semicolon there, refresh the page, and it works. But because the red, those 2 digits are identical. Same for the green, same for the blue. I can actually shorten this to just 000, refresh, exactly the same. Now, if I had a different color, how about something like CC? I don't know, I'm just totally making this up. 55E, that pinkish color, sure. There it is. I can actually shorten this just to be C5E. I refresh and it's the same color. So if you ever see that, if you see a 3-digit hex, you could expand it if you wanted to, right? Just add that in, CC55EE. Just know it's a shorter way of writing the same color, but we have way fewer options for only using those 3 digits versus with 6. We can have all these other colors that don't have the same digit for each pair. Also, while I have you, this is super useful in VS Code. If you hover and you want to change something, hover over the color, change its value just like that. And I don't know if you can click to go between RGB and hex. There's also a third system I'm not going to go into here called HSL. I actually really like HSL colors, but I just don't want to bog things down too early on. We could spend an hour talking about colors and I don't want to do that. This is why I make my videos short and fast, so as to avoid learning fatigue for students and so that you can understand and remember things I teach easily. If you want more detail on HSL, it's really not going to be important for now whatsoever. We've got 2 color systems down and they are the most commonly used, RGB and hex. Okay.